Today in Matt's class, we are going to talk about folds in fabric. As if I don't really have folds in fabric right here. Woohoo! So welcome back to another edition of Matt's class. And today we're going to talk about folds in fabric. And this is very important because, you know, when I went to art school, I had so many figure classes where you draw the nude figure. And of course, that's great. You learn, the anatomy, and it's kind of the traditional way that you learn to draw figures. But then it's weird, after having 8 semesters of figure drawing classes, you go out into the real world and you have to draw people wearing clothes, and it's like, oh my gosh, and you have people like floating in the middle of a t-shirt, and you don't get enough of how to draw fabrics, and so it's important to learn some of those things. So we're gonna draw a bunch of different examples of how drawing folds in fabrics can work for you, and I've got a bunch of really good tips. The first tip that I wanna give you guys is the whole thing of when you have fabric that is taut and bunched together. And the idea is around each one of our limbs, wherever we have a limb or a torso bending, there's an area of the fabric that is taut, and there's an area of the fabric that gets bunched together. So for example, if you don't mind, you've got the elbow here, right? Mm-hmm. So watch what happens when Kristen turns her elbow like this. See how it's taut here around the edge of the elbow? That means on the other side, this is where it gets bunched together. You also have an area like the shoulder, right? Like I've got right here, it's taut around the shoulder, but then underneath in the fun armpit, it gets bunched together. Then you have an area like in the knee. You can see where my knee is sticking out. It's taut against the knee, and then the fabric kind of folds underneath the underside like that. So especially if you're creating characters that you're drawing on your own, this is very helpful. A lot of times I see amateur artists that just put folds everywhere, and it's just like all of these crazy folds for no rhyme or reason. But if you can try to pay attention to the whole taut area and where it gets bunched in, that's going to help you quite a bit. And if you're drawing a figure where you actually have a photo, or if you have a live model that you're drawing that's wearing clothes, then these are things to look out for, and it's going to help you quite a bit. So that's item number 1.
In the context you're using, it's T-A-U-T. Because right there, it's like you taught himself.
Hold on.
No, you're right.
Thank you, autocorrect, for turning taut into taint. T-A-U-T. Stretched or pulled tight,
yep,
not
you are
slack.
correct.
The more you know.
Taut and bunched. Okay, item number 2, you want to use the beautiful art of drawing things random. So way back in a video that was how to draw the female head eyes, I talked about the beauty of drawing things random. I was talking about eyelashes in that video, but I also talked about drawing stars and galaxies and making everything random. So when it comes to making up folds in fabric, the last thing you want to do is, if you have an arm, you don't want to have the Michelin Man where like the folds on your sleeves are kind of doing this thing. It's just really weird. It's just too perfect and even. So when you have something like an elbow or something like that, or something is just kind of like this, and then you may have something like that. You see how it's kind of bending around like that? So what I tried to do here is I tried to make each one of these folds, some of them are a little bit longer, some of them are a little bit shorter, some of them are a little bit closer together, some of them not as much. And anytime I see an order, if I see something too similar, I try to get rid of it. Right now, this and this, these antlers here, are too much alike. So maybe I'll make this one just a little bit shorter. That helps, because now I don't see an order in there, even though it's kind of like spaghetti.
A good little cheap and easy way I know to remember this. Right now, when you look at the wrong drawing, you'll notice that these all end in a T. So yeah, that comes like out at a 90-degree angle. Z or J. These are all in Y shapes. Very much like a tree branch. So keep them kind of relaxed in little Y shapes to begin with. And these little guys here are great for like cuffs of stuff, or things that are rounded in shape, or like fleeces, heavy materials.
So Y before J, except after K. No J's. Love it. Next tip is connecting edges. So when you've got folds in the fabric like this, don't forget that every time you have an area that connects, this is a connecting edge here. This T is a connecting edge here. This is a connecting edge here. This is a connecting edge here. And it just really kind of helps the folds kind of stand out a little bit, three-dimensional. So tip number 4, connecting edges. If I have a figure here like this, and let's say they're chilling like a villain. Here's this dude sitting back. Maybe this goes here, maybe this goes here. Totally pimping back. So now if I draw some folds in the fabric, I might have you want to be careful, again, with the whole random thing. If you've got them too perfectly the same distance and the same width, it looks like a little hand, like a little crow foot or something like that. Got sweet bell bottoms on. So can you see we're utilizing a lot of these things? We've got where it's taut, we've got where it's random, we've got no J's, we've got Y's instead of J's, and we've got some connecting edges here. In fact, I can beef up some of these connecting edges even more to really kind of get those forms, the fabrics. And the cool thing about this, it really feels like the fabric is wrapping around instead of sometimes you draw people where it's hard to tell, is the person wearing that shirt or is the shirt wearing that person? I don't even know, right? Or they're floating inside the middle of it. Here, it really feels like the fabric is kind of stretched and wrapping around the torso and the limbs. It just works out really great. There is one more thing with the folds in the fabric that can help you. Once you start getting a little bit more advanced with your shading, you have your form shadows and your cast shadows, and that actually is going to help with your fabrics. So let me first write down step number 5 that will help you. You've got your form and cast shadows. And here is how it works. So let's say we have a ribbon-like scenario. And let's say we've got light that is coming down at an angle, kind of like this. So what's gonna happen, this ribbon, every time the ribbon rolls over like this, it's gonna roll into shadow here. It's casting a shadow. The light is putting all of the ribbon here. All of that is gonna be in shadow. And then you've got kind of this edge here. So all of this, so this is our soft edge. This is the form shadow. This hard edge here is where the cast shadow ends. It kind of starts with a form shadow and then it turns into the cast shadow over here. And then the same thing happens here with this ribbon. It's gonna roll into shadow. Again, the light's coming like this. We've got our cast shadow over here. So the reason why I'm saying this is you get more advanced, especially if you're drawing from the figure, if you're drawing from a photo, or if you're drawing from a live model. Once you're getting into more advanced, like shading with charcoal or color pencils, you really want to pay attention, especially when drawing fabrics. Where are those hard edges and where are those soft edges? And then all of the ribbon over here is going back in shadow. There's one more thing I want to do to this to help it stand out, and that is I want to have a little bit of a background here. Again, the whole idea, whenever you're designing something, even if you're not taking the time to draw the exact background, putting in some tone, using some design aesthetics so that you can put dark areas against light areas against dark areas. Because I've got the darkness here, I can have like maybe there's a little bit of light that's kind of going around here a little bit. And so maybe I'll do some cross hatching here and then maybe around the rest of this. Oh, that's a cool starburst. What's that ribbon doing in front of it? Hopefully it's like, that's a sweet ribbon. So again, this is a little bit more advanced when you're drawing folds in fabric. If you have a single dominant light source, if you look at every single fold, like even this one right here, this little fold in the fabric that I have, if you look closely, it's rolling into shadow here, and then it's got a hard edge shadow right there. So every time you've got like this little fold, I can't really do it with markers, and this is super tiny, but if you're drawing large and in charge with charcoal, just as an example, this might be rolling into shadow on one side, and then you might have a harder edge on the other.
All right, guys, let's talk about boobs, or what not to do with boobs. First off, see this little line right here? This is going to be your pectoral muscle. Men and women both have them. Women, your boobs are anchored with a muscle right up here. See that little triangle that you have from your shoulders? It's anchored right up here. Imagine that you're wearing a nice big bowling ball rack right around your shoulders. So they come down, out, teardrop. Now here's what not to do. Please do not draw your shirts like this. If you draw your shirts like this means that your shirt is sucking in between the twins in a very uncomfortable way. When we're stretching fabric over the boobs, they will only hit the highest point of your boobs, and then it will stretch taut across them if you have a very tight shirt. If you have a loose shirt, you might have a little bit of sag in the middle, but it's not going to suction against the skin in the middle of the boobs. So in this case, I might do like a couple little lines going from one line to the other to make it look like there's a little bit of tension there. The more lines you add, the more this shirt's gonna look way too small. And it's okay if you let it go down a little bit. See, I'm not grabbing it right next to the skin. I don't wanna do this, where I'm just like tracing the entire body in, because this looks like way too small of a shirt. Like those sleeves just don't go with that shirt. But this, if it's a loose t-shirt, I can even let it like billow out a little bit at the end if it's tucked in, to where it looks like it's got that nice little tuck. In any fabric at the bottom of the shirt can also kind of curve into that little tuck to give you that sort of tucked in finished look. Now that stretching happens the same thing with skirts. If you have pants, it's pretty easy to kind of conform it around the form, but from skirts, like with this person sitting kind of cross-legged here, the skirt is gonna go from one leg, stretch all the way over to the other, and your tension points are going to be those knees and the tops of the thighs where the fabric's actually resting. Gravity is a thing, so make sure that where most of that is pulling is like this taut form. As gravity takes effect down here, it's gonna start like going down further and further and really kind of sagging in towards the middle, depending on how loose the skirt is. Just know that this should not suck in towards the legs unless it's being tucked underneath the leg. Most jeans are going to start either at the natural waist or a little bit below. And that's around where like you'll start seeing like your navel.
So again, these are great tips if you're ever creating your own characters. Yeah, not that one.
Don't do that.
These are really good if you're creating your own characters, and if you are doing figure drawing where, again, you're drawing from a photo or if you're drawing from a real person, ideally you want to draw what you see. That is the key. But what's great about having tips like this is you know what to look for. When you're drawing a fold in fabric, you want to understand what it is that you are drawing. You should be able to look at folds and you should be able to decipher where is the hard edge, where is the soft edge. And when you can do that, when you understand how the folds work, it really just improves your drawing big time. Take what we did here and put it to action. Did you enjoy class today? If so, give me a like. If there's something you'd like to see me cover in a future video, let me know what that is in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I've also got a video series called Sketchbook Challenge that helps your drawing, creativity, and fill up an awesome looking sketchbook. Plus, there are videos on You Can Draw Star Wars, Hollywood is Dead, and sneak peeks at the Aladdin 3477 motion picture trilogy. In order to not miss any new videos, hit that notification bell. Sharing is caring, and it's great to inspire your friends. Share this video on social media and your friends will share awesome art tips they find with you. If you're on Instagram, you can follow me at Matt_Busch_Instagram. I'll see you back in the classroom soon. Don't be tardy.